Okay, tonight I want to take a look at OmniOS. This is part 2, looking at the Illumos distributions. OmniOS is a really good general purpose kind of server OS based on the Illumos kernel and userland. It's fantastic. Um, so let's get going and get the VM created. Oh no, we don't want Windows. What am I thinking? I'll give it a nice healthy dose of memory. And create the disk image. And we'll do 76 gigs. And we'll adjust a few settings. We'll give ourselves 2 cores. Turn on the host cache and choose a disk. Turn off audio, and we'll put the bridged adapter on Ethernet 1. Okay, looks good. We'll start it up. I'm going to switch to scale mode so that hopefully the boot messages and the text we're looking at will be a little clearer. So as always, if the font looks a little funny, aspect ratio, it's because we are in scale mode and I'm not maintaining aspect ratio. So if you saw that, it uses grub. OmniOS is in the process of switching to the new Illumos bootloader, and we can maybe look at switching that over to that bootloader once we get it installed. Following along the pattern here, we'll take a look at what comes installed, what the packaging looks like, so the native packaging and the native package repositories, and look about adding packages. And in this case, we'll bring package source up to install binary packages from the package source repository that Joyant maintains. Sticking to the old Solaris installer paradigm, F2 to continue, text installer. You're going to use that whole disk. And we're in the Americas. And we're central, and the time looks right. This hopefully won't take too long. It is a pretty slim install. You kind of get just what you need, and then you're expected to add packages later. I guess that's kind of the modern thing to do, even though storage is so cheap. Whereas something like a Triblix, you can go and give it the quote kitchen sink install and get everything, or a lot of the stuff. There's still other things you can add from the Triblix repository. But you get a little bit more complete. I mean, Slackware kind of my favorite, where you could install less, but the recommended is you just get all 8 gigs of Slackware at once, and I feel like that kind of works in a lot of cases. So this is trucking right along, and hopefully we'll be complete soon, and we can actually get into boot up. So in OmniOS, we will have to set up networking. They're not going to ask us here in the installer. So the installer, all it does is, creates file system, copies data, installs bootloader. Pretty basic. And sets the time zone and the host name. So we're expected to do a little bit of extra work afterwards, but it's pretty painless. And the Illumos networking tools make it pretty easy. So we'll go through that once we get it up and running. We can SSH in and get a better looking font here. One of the cool things Solaris 11 did was use the old, what looks like the old Sun font. I don't know why Illumos hasn't done that. Maybe it's proprietary. Who knows? We're wrapping up here with the file copy. We should be able to reboot here in a moment. So it is taking an extra second. Once we get it up and running, we'll see what datasets were created by default on the file system. It's all ZFS root. And take a look at installing some packages. There's not a whole lot of capability right out of the box. Again, kind of a blank canvas, which means it doesn't have a whole lot of personality either, but that's a good thing. So if I was going to be running a production Illumos server, say I wanted a web server, run some application somewhere, if I didn't need the hypervisor capabilities of SmartOS, and this can still do things like QEMU KVM and zones, including LX zones. And we'll hit F8 to reboot here. OmniOS would be my pick, especially if I needed LX zones and KVM. It really is just as very, very good general purpose OS. SmartOS, on the other hand, is I'm going to have to move the disk there and reset because I was not paying attention. Let's say OmniOS is a very, very good general purpose system. So we have auto boot set. We're using grub. So we'll pick that image there. And as I said, they're moving towards the new Illumos loader, which is pretty cool. Reminds me a lot of, say, the FreeBSD bootloader. I mean, it may very well be that under the hood, but with a few changes to support boot environments, things like that. So we have to load our SMF descriptors here. SMF is, so why would you choose Illumos or in Solaris, but you probably should go with Illumos unless you have a specific need for Solaris, because Illumos is open source and Oracle is not respecting the open sourceness of what was once Open Solaris. ZFS, big one. SMF, if you want things like self-healing and just the management, is really nice. For my purposes, Slackware Startup works fine. BSD Startup works fine. We can log in here as root, not a password. So password is blank on install. But also you get things like zones and crossbow, which is the networking features. Fantastic. So it beats some of the other options out there for a Unix-like operating system in some key areas. So let's set up the networking. And one of those areas is the network management. We'll take a look at our physical interfaces. So we have our adapter here, but we don't have an interface plumbed. So we're going to need to plumb it. And this is kind of like doing a plumb in the old Solaris, or a similar pre-step. You have to create the interface here. Now, it may do this automatically when you create an address for it. In fact, let's try that. So we may have to come back to that. So we're going to create an address. We'll use a -t because we want it to be persistent across reboots. It'll be a static address. And the address is 193. And our net mask. We give it our physical interface, and v4, we only need IPv4. So that worked. So we don't even need that plumb step. So we now see we have our address up and running. So that's pretty painless. take a look at some of the... So there's a lot of commands here in dladmin and ipadmin. Leave a comment below if you want to see a video more about the Illumos networking. And I probably will do one anyway on why you should be running SimH and virtualization and any sort of emulation virtualization on Illumos. Because look at this, you know, add bridge, show bridge. You can create VNICs. It's all very, very easy here. So we now have our interface plumbed and address assigned. Need to add a route. Oh, I forgot something, which again, just like we used a capital T for the address configuration, I have to add a P flag here to persist across reboots. And now I have to edit resolve.conf. And I cannot type tonight. And set up NS switch. Okay, so we can now do name resolution. We should be able to get in here from the outside. One more step, we've got to create a user. Let's take a look at what data sets are already there. So we have a data set for export home. So let's create a data set for this guy. So now we have our user created. So we haven't added our user yet. That should now work. So now we have our user, give him a password. So one of the things I like here is you get the feel of some of the older steps here, but we got modern components because it is sort of limited. So you get a feel like you have to do some extra setup. It doesn't come right out of the box, you know, graphical tools for everything, which is nice. Okay, so we're in. We can now take a better look here at the next couple bits and pieces. Again, I'm such a habit of putting in a root password. We probably should change that. Okay, added a root password. So OmniOS uses IPS packages. Different of the Illumos distro flavors use different packaging schemes. I would have preferred System 5, but it's IPS. So you use the PKG tool, package tool. It works just like it did in OpenIndiana, with a few exceptions, right? It's very similar. But let's put in, say, GCC. So we can do a package search. Put in GCC. Yeah. So about this, they don't have a huge package repository. It is honestly everything you really need and some of the core components. So if we wanted to add Linux branded zones, we could do that from here. Obviously here we can add the compiler. We get GCC 5, which is nice. So you get the latest, what is that, C++ 11 standard stuff for building some of the modern software that requires it. It's cool. And the package repositories tend to be pretty fast. So we're getting, as you see here, over 7 megasecond down. Use the package tool also to do system upgrades. So you can upgrade by issuing the package update command, and that will do your upgrade, get your new software download and create a new boot environment for you and activate that boot environment. Leave a comment below if you want to do a little bit more with boot environments. Maybe do a video on there. Kind of my next videos after we finish up with the Illumos retrospective here. So we did Open Indiana. This is OmniOS. Probably do Triblix. If there's interest, we could do SmartOS, although it probably is much less interesting. After that is to look at zones. So do a 2 or 3 part on zones because they're very cool. We could also do one on ZFS, and maybe after that, boot environments. So let's see what we get. We'll do a DF here. So we've used about 2.3 gigs, plus a little bit for swap. So let's see what else we can do. So we got opgcc. Let's see what we have here. This is useful to know. We do get Java coming in. We get OpenJDK 1.7. Not bad. We have both the GNU and the Illumos user lands, which is nice. Again, for many people, they get used to the GNU capabilities, and the more traditional user land might not be a good fit, so you get both out of the box. Fantastic. Let's see what Perl version we get. Ooh, yeah, so that's a little old. 5.16, it's not too bad. I would have preferred 5.18 or later, but in all honesty, you're doing any sort of production work, even if you're just developing, you're probably going to want, for developing, you probably want Perl brew, and you're going to want to build your own Perl and stick it somewhere. Same thing with things like R. I do a lot of work in the R language. Build your own, stick it somewhere, especially in a production environment. You don't want to rely on the system installed versions of this, because this can change during, say a patching or an upgrade. Build your own, it's going to be pretty static. Of course, you'd have to maintain it yourself, but typically it's a good strategy. So let's see about getting package source up and running so we can add some more packages. Because, let's see. Yes, that's not going to work. Let's see if we can find some other packages here just to do a little spot check to see if they have some of my favorite editors. So no Jed, no Elvis. So we get, yeah. We don't get, let's see. Yeah, so it's pretty slim on some, I guess, what would be considered, add-on or accessory packages. Let's see if we can get Tomcat. Nope. Let's see what Apache should come back with anything. No. So pretty lightweight repo, stores what's needed for the OS. Thankfully, Joyant has, supplies a lot of binary packages through the package source system. So let's get that up and running. So pull the bootstrap here, and we will get package source up and running. Now it'll let us add some things. We'll go through. We'll add X windows. Maybe we'll add a couple of these editors here, and hopefully that will kind of get us to a state where it matches Open Indiana, right? So we have a desktop environment. I don't know if we'll install any extra window managers, but at least get it up and running, and some of the other tools we might need. And so it installs here into opt local. Obviously, you can edit some of your settings there to put your installed packages somewhere else. I like to keep everything there. You have to set your path, obviously, to include those directories. So we will pull down our summary here. And so we've got Jed here, right? But we care about Xorg. So let's install Xorg. We may need to do a reboot after this, but let's see if we can get it done. Yep. So that's not going to work. So I thought there was a meta package that would grab everything. So let's we're going to need the keyboard and mouse drivers and a video driver. We'll stick with Xfce here. That's a lot to install there. See, it's going to say, okay, 81 megs to download, 301 to install. And so packaging, hey, it works nicely. So package source is pretty cool. Again, I say this a lot, but leave a comment if you want to see a video on package source. We could maybe try bootstrapping it on an oddball platform, like, I don't know, IRIX, or an older version of Solaris or something. You know, bootstrap package source on an old Solaris, like Solaris 8, for instance, which might be interesting to look at. I think the upcoming ones on zones will be cool. I think zones are fantastic these days, so hopefully that'll be fun. Oh, I forgot we have to grab a couple of packages from OmniOS's actual package repository. We'll do that while we wait. We'll pull those down while this is doing its thing. And this is pretty quick for pulling down a copy of X. So can't complain too much about the performance here. And as you see, we're getting, on ones where you have enough to time it correctly, you're getting over a couple megs a second. And that's running. So let's switch out of scale mode here, since I don't think we'll need that. And we want that to resize correctly. So we now get a start X. Does it work? Yes. We now have X windows. Pretty cool. I'm not going to go through the steps of configuring a better resolution here or installing the guest editions. Obviously, you could do that. You'll get the VirtualBox video driver. which would be pretty important. But while we're over here, let's that's what I'm looking for. Let's see about getting some other tools. Let's install Jed. Remember to add the install. So we can get some good editors on here. Cool. We get Jed. See about Elvis. Oh, and it's not liking something there. So we'll kill that. Killing the X terms, hopefully. So yeah, it is doing something a little goofy there, but we will we'll reboot and press on, and hopefully that will fix it. Next thing I want to look at is the changing the boot environment here to the new boot environment. So in Xfce default, we have a file that contains this line, and we want to get rid of that file. And we want to activate the boot environment. And we'll give a verbose here so we can see what it's doing. Now, boot environments are pretty cool, and they let you roll back in interesting ways. And so what we did there is, since we removed that file, it's done the install boot here onto our disk. So now when we hit a reboot, and let me switch over into scale mode here, so hopefully we can see that, we will see the new bootloader. And the new bootloader is fantastic. It's better than Grub. There's the new bootloader. No more Grub. So let me hit a 6 so we can see our boot environments. So we have a backup. We have the boot environments there. Sorry, my dog is whining in the background. So we're just going to go with the active one. And that should do it. But now, much better than Grub. This is a new feature in the kind of the bloody release. I think older releases can also update to it. But I don't know. Okay. Let's get back over there. I'm probably going to have to wrap this up in a moment because my dogs are agitated for some reason. But one more thing I want to look at is see if we can get an actual desktop environment up and running here So I think we'll do Xfce because it should be a little smaller. But you could very easily do, see, how much do we have to download here? Ooh, 367 megs. Yeah, we won't do that. Let's see if there's a fancier window manager that might fit. Let's see. Open. I cannot spell tonight. We'll do open box. So there we just have 75 megs to download. And hopefully that will be a little bit faster. But yeah, downloading 400 megs would take a little bit of time. And in the console here, I will I'm going to set path for the user here again. Okay. Yeah, we'll use Jed here because we now have some good editors in here. And let's see. Okay, so we do have open box there. Oh, I'm still in VI mode. Oh, my screen got a little messed up there. There we go. That should do it. Let's see. We can get X Windows up. And it looks like there's an issue with the mouse driver. So let's take a look at the log really quick, and then I got to wrap this up. Yeah. So I don't know if that is because of mouse driver, if because we're VMing this. Okay. We are back down there. Let me take a look, see if maybe there's better mouse driver. Yes, we have the VMware. So this may be something where we want to install guest editions. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to do that now, but you've seen the Open Indiana and Triblix videos. This should be similar. The only possible issue is that because X is now in opt local bin or opt local instead of user, some of the scripts to do the install might not find what they're looking for, so you might have to do some kind of manual installation there of some of the components for the guest editions. Let me see. See if this has it. Yeah, so we get the VMware. Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything for VirtualBox. Just really quick, just because I have to. So they have a pretty recent version of SimH in here. I guess this wraps it up here. Hopefully this was interesting in looking at the Illumos in retrospective fashion. Don't have the takeaway of this be that OmniOS is not suitable for X. It absolutely is. This looks to be just an issue with the mouse driver in VirtualBox, which the guest editions should solve perfectly fine. OmniOS is a fantastic operating system. Again, if I was doing production servers on Illumos, this is the one I would pick. Again, not a desktop OS, a server OS. Package source works. It's got everything you need, and it has LX branded zones. It has zones. So I guess that's it for this one. Leave a comment below if you want to see more. Have anything to add? And if you're looking forward to the Triblix, hopefully it won't be a 2-week delay. Hopefully I'll get that out sooner as kind of the next installment of the Illumos distributions. Again, thanks for watching and listening. See you next time.